Hello everyone, today we are breaking down Season 1, Episode 1, Leavetaking of the Wheel of Time. Remember to like the video, it helps out the channel a lot, and subscribe, and yada yada yada. Let's get to it. The first thing we see is Moraine, who is an Aes Sedai. Aes Sedai are basically sorceresses who can channel the One Power. The One Power emanates from the true source. There are two parts of this source, Sahadin and Sahadar, a female half and a male half. Forgive me if I mispronounce anything. Moraine in the opening scene explains what her quest is. She's looking for the Dragon Reborn. Many years prior to this, a cataclysmic event known as the Breaking of the World happened, where the male Aes Sedai went mad and destroyed much of the world. The reason why they went mad is that they tried to imprison the Dark One, which they were successful in doing, but the Dark One was able to taint the male half of the true source, causing madness in the male side. The last dragon, Louis Theron Telamon, was there to seal the Dark One in, and he also succumbed to the madness. Now that the dragon has been reborn, Moraine and the other Aes Sedai are tasked with finding him before the Dark One and his minions do. In the next scene, we see Aes Sedai chasing two men down. We then find out there is only one man and he was seeing things. This man has used the One Power, which has caused him to go insane. Just because a man can use the One Power does not make him the dragon. But nevertheless, he needs to be dealt with because he is very dangerous to the people around him. We then see these Aes Sedai, Liadrin is the one leading them, are wearing red, whereas Moraine was wearing blue. There are different factions in the Aes Sedai which can be figured out by the color they wear. Liadrin is part of the red Aja, whereas Moraine is part of the blue Aja. There are 7 different Ajas in total, which has their own specific rules and purposes, which we should see later on in the series. The person who is accompanying Moraine is Lan. He is a warder. A warder is someone who is bonded to an Aes Sedai. They are like bodyguards for them, even though they can protect themselves pretty good, as you will see later on in the episode. With this bond, a warder gains enhanced abilities compared to normal humans. He has greater stamina and physical prowess, a greater capacity to resist evil, the ability to sense shadow spawn at a distance, which is just evil beings, and greater resistance to injury. Moraine says their next stop to look for the dragon is at the Two Rivers. There are rumors of 4 ta'veren. Ta'veren are people who the Wheel of Time specifically weaves the pattern with all surrounding life threats. These people are more controlled by the wheel than regular people. In the books, if I remember correctly, only 3 are considered ta'veren. We then see a scene introducing 2 principal characters, Egwene and Nynaeve. Nynaeve is the wisdom of the Two Rivers, which is a healer and the leader of the Woman's Circle. All wisdoms claim they can listen to the wind and prophesy certain events. This is a ceremony bringing Egwene into the Women's Circle in the Two Rivers. It's pretty much a group to establish social protocols and culture within the Two Rivers. You can also see they are braiding Egwene's hair, which is another big thing for a woman in the Two Rivers. To have your hair braided means that the circle has decided you are at a marriageable age. The throwing into the river is not in the books, but hey, why not? We then meet Tam al'Thor and his son Rand al'Thor. They are just simple farmers bringing some things into town. Rand is also a principal character in this story. It is Beltane in the Two Rivers, which is a celebration of the end of winter and the beginning of spring. It's a pretty big deal for these folk. Tam mentions how wolves are being pushed down from the mountain when Rand draws his bow. What drives packs of wolves we will see later on in the episode. Just to note, it is so weird to see Roose Bolton smile. I know it's not Game of Thrones, but still. We meet 2 more principal characters in the show, Mat and Perrin. In the books, Mat is known as a troublemaker, always playing pranks on people, and is a bit immature. In this, it's similar but more grown up. He is still a bit of a smart ass as well, though. Perrin is a blacksmith in this and is married, which is quite different from the books. In the book, he is just an apprentice and he's a little scared of women, which I would say is kind of accurate for all 3, but they aged them up for the series, so it's slightly different. Perrin mentions how there is a war going on, doesn't really give much detail after that, and Mat and Rand don't seem to really care. This shows how the two rivers are kind of isolated. They don't really worry about things like that. Egwene returns from the river thing where she meets her father, Brand Alvear. He is the one who owns the tavern they are in and is the mayor of Emond's Field, which is just the two rivers. Egwene and Rand share a look. Earlier, Tam mentioned how Rand used to pick berries for her when he was younger, a real simp. The two do have a connection with one another, but she is ignoring Rand, which we find out why later. Lan and Moraine enter the tavern. They get quite a few stares. Egwene's mother, Meryn, sees the ring on Moraine's finger and knows she is an Aes Sedai. This is different from the books. Moraine keeps it a secret. Most think she's just a noble woman. Moraine looks around the room and sees a bunch of 20-year-olds. Rand, Perrin, Egwene, Nynaeve, and Mat. Any one of them could be the dragon reborn. We then see Perrin's wife working at the forge by herself. He says he loves her, blah, 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 giving him a backstory, adding more to his character. We also see Mat and how his mother is a drunk and his dad is a womanizer. I read the first book and it was never mentioned. I'm guessing this is new for the TV adaptation. We then find ourselves with Rand and Egwene being left alone by their parents. And then the two fuck. This is different from the books. In the books, Rand can't even dance with Egwene without stumbling and being nervous, so the show has beefed up his confidence in his skill tree, it looks like. We then see Lan and Moraine bathing together. She makes the water warmer. I don't think there's a sexual relationship between these two in the books, but that may change in the TV show. Moraine believes she has found the dragon here in the two rivers, but she does not know which one. We return to the two lovebirds, where Egwene reveals that Nynaeve wants her to be her apprentice. Rand is quite upset about this. Wisdoms don't get married. Rand says it's a lonely life, trying to convince her not to go through with it. Rand is in love with Egwene. He wants to marry her. And if she becomes an apprentice, that won't happen. Egwene hasn't agreed yet to it, but Rand thinks he knows what she'll pick, and he storms off. After he storms off, the wind picks up and you see Egwene sense something evil heading towards them. So she does have the skill to become a wisdom. We then see what enters the town. This is known as a Myrddraal, also known as Fades. They are shadow spawn, they are muscular and serpent quick. They have waxy white skin. They have no eyes but can see with perfect clarity. Their appearance never varies. They are always male in appearance, with identical features and builds described as being like that of a tall man. They tend to lead Trollocs, which we see later on in the episode. They sometimes have to drive them to do things, which we will see in the next episode. But Lan should have been able to sense the Fade being so close in town, but whatever. It's the next morning and we meet Padan Fain, who is a peddler. In the books, he is the one who brings the news of war and other news from outside the two rivers. He is very theatrical about it. In this, they made his role somewhat smaller. We see him talking to Mat. It seems Mat is a pickpocket in this version, which isn't too far off from what his character would be like in the books. I could see him doing this, and he and Padan seem to have a working relationship. Moraine mentions how Lan did not sleep, and then she mentions a Fade, so he did sense the creature after all. We then meet Rand and Egwene again, Rand and her sitting in front of a beautiful landscape, and he tells her about what he thinks about when he's up here, his life here, his house he will have, his wife, his kids, pretty much making one more effort to change her mind, but she lets him know that she is going to become an apprentice, but he already knew that, and his heart is broken, and the two share a cry together. How did he know that? Maybe he knows her really well, or maybe something more. We then find ourselves with Moraine talking to Nynaeve. Moraine is poking around trying to find out who the dragon could be. Nynaeve, on the other hand, is being very rude. She then goes into this backstory on the woman who raised her, who went to the White Tower when she was 13 and was turned away. It took her months to walk from the two rivers to the White Tower. The woman who raised Nynaeve never forgot how rude the Aes Sedai were to her, and that's why Nynaeve holds a grudge against her. The White Tower is where prospective Aes Sedai go to be trained, and is also the headquarters of the Aes Sedai. With Moiraine poking around, she finds out Nynaeve is 25 or 26, too old to be the dragon. In the next scene, we see Egwene and Nynaeve listening to the wind. They know something strange is coming. Moiraine from her room is watching the three lads, still trying to figure out which of them could be the dragon. In the books, she talks to them for a little bit before the shit hits the fan, but in this, she does not. Rand and Tam return back to the farm. They light the lantern. The lanterns are supposed to help guide spirits back. So they light one for Tam's wife, Rand's mother. It's tradition during Beltane. Tam then goes into a monologue. This is probably my favorite part of the episode, to be honest. All we can do is the best we can with the life that's given to us, and take comfort in it. That no matter what happens, what pain we face, what heartbreak, even death, the wheel keeps turning, always. And we try again, and maybe do a little better than the last time. This just explains how souls come back. It may be a different face, but the wheel eventually will bring them back. We then see the Beltane festival kick off, a bunch of dancing and fun. Lan reports back to Moiraine and says the Fade has dozens of Trollocs. With it, Moiraine still does not know who could the dragon reborn be, but they have to go help the town before it's destroyed. This is somewhat different from the books. We never read about the attack. We get to hear about the aftermath. We get our first look at a Trolloc. A Trolloc is a shadow spawn that makes up the bulk of the Dark One's army. They are crossed with human and animal stock with physical characteristics of both. So one could have a goat look, and the other one could look like a bear. They can speak, but they have a cruel sense of humor. They are less intelligent than humans. That's why a Fade is usually supervising them. They are meat eaters and they will eat their victims. We then see the Trollocs go on a rampage and start fucking up people. We then see Padan Fain give a bit of a smirk and walk away as if nothing bad is going to happen to him. He would be considered a dark friend, someone who is working for the Dark One. We then get a beautiful one-shot of Mat running through the chaos. I just like this shot, so. We return to Tam and Rand, and a Trolloc bursts into the farmhouse. In the book, it's like 10 Trollocs, and if I remember correctly, Tam takes quite a few down. This is very important. A Trolloc showed up to their remote farm. That means that the Dark One also thinks that somebody in the Two Rivers is the Dragon Reborn. The Trolloc beats the crap out of the two when Tam pulls out his sword, and it has a heron on it. They don't explain this in episode 1. I haven't watched the next 2. They might do that in the next ones. But somebody who has a heron-marked blade is a blade master, which means they are crazy good with a sword. In the books, Rand does not know this about his father. I would assume it's the same in the TV show. Kinda wish it was a broadsword, to be honest. I think they look cooler, but whatever. Rand is able to save his father by stabbing the Trolloc in the back, but the Trolloc was able to cut Tam with his blade. If it is left untreated, Tam would die from the poison on the blade. Nynaeve and Egwene fight Trollocs head on now and get saved by Moiraine. Moiraine and Lan just start slaying Trollocs, Moiraine using the one power and Lan using his sword. You can really see how powerful a Aes Sedai and a warder can be. Nynaeve gets taken by one of the Trollocs. The Trollocs don't want to kill the dragon. They want to convince whoever that is to join the Dark One. And they don't know Nynaeve is 26, so they just capture her. This is not in the books. It is never mentioned that she gets grabbed. Perrin, while killing a Trolloc, accidentally kills his wife, which, damn, did not expect that. Like I said, she was a new character for the show, and she was short-lived. It seems that they have given Perrin a much more sad story compared to the books. In the books, he kind of just leaves the Two Rivers, not having the emotional trauma he has gotten in the show. Same thing with Mat. He seems to be looking out for his sisters, unlike his parents, which is different from the books. There isn't anyone who depends on him in the books, so leaving isn't as big of a deal. Moiraine takes out the rest of the Trollocs by sending stones at them, but with doing so, destroys the inn and some of the town. Using the one power drains Moiraine, causing her to collapse. It's the next morning and Rand has his father on a horse. to have someone heal him. They skipped over a large portion of the book. Rand actually sneaks through the woods for a couple chapters. Also, Tam mentions something that is very important and is mentioned a lot in the book, and it seems to have been left out of the show. I'm curious if it gets mentioned in future episodes or not. Rand sees the destruction and Moraine heals his father. Moraine then explains that the Trollocs are looking for Egwene, Rand, Mat, or Perrin, and one of them is the Dragon Reborn. The dragon can stand against the Dark One, or can be corrupted and be a minion of the Dark One. In the books, Egwene was never thought to be the dragon. She just happened to find the three when they were about to leave, and pretty much convinced them to let her come along because she wanted to see the world. So another deviation from the book. We then see more Trollocs heading for the village. Moraine tells them they are coming with her. The Trollocs will not attack Emond's Field if they are gone from it. She then tells them the only safe place for them is at the White Tower with the other Aes Sedai. The gang heads out of town, and the adventure for these four youths begins. And unfortunately for them, the Trollocs follow. So what do you think of episode 1 of the Wheel of Time? Leave it down in the comments below. And if you want more Wheel of Time content, please subscribe and like the video and check out the Twitter link in the description below. And as always, have an awesome day.